This is the Wishing Mandala Stamp Set and Wishing Mandala stencils from Birch Press Design. I'm going to be putting down some layers of color before I even get started with the stencil. I'm going to take Distress Oxide in crushed olive and also in fossilized amber to begin putting spots of color here and there on a background of white cardstock. My goal here is to more or less fill up the space, but it's okay if you have areas of strong color and areas of light color. It's just going to make it more interesting in the end. I decided to add a little bit of orange. This is Distress Oxide in Orange Marmalade. I'm just using a sponge like I did before with some circular strokes to add bits of color here and there around the background. You can spend as much time as you want filling this in. Once you are satisfied, go ahead and emboss the image with white embossing powder. Now, I noticed afterwards that I didn't allow enough time for that ink to dry, so when I embossed it, there were a lot of white speckles all over the background. But I love how it turned out, and you'll see in the photos of the sample that it was actually a pretty interesting technique. Or a happy accident, depending on your perspective. So I put one of the stencils on top of the design here, and I'm adding some color, adding some of that fossilized amber and some of that orange marmalade. And I'm just going to put a little bit of color here and there, start filling those things in. Now that's going to make parts of that a little bit deeper than the background that we originally put on. Now my goal here is to build layer upon layer of color, and we're sponging all of the ink onto the paper for a very smooth look. This new stencil opens up other areas of the design to color in, and I'm going to stay pretty tight with my color scheme here, again using the same colors that I used in the beginning to put down the background color. This will give your project a tone-on-tone look, where some of the image is filled in with dark color and some of the image is filled in with light color, but it all sort of matches and goes together. That's not to say that you can use lots of different colors. I want you to explore and try out all sorts of the tools and products that you have to fill these stencils in, but this is just a way to make it a little bit more complementary. So here I am just kind of dancing around the stencil, putting a little bit of color here and a little bit of color there. I don't really have a rhyme or reason. I'm just letting artistic flow sort of take over and fill things in. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process with the remaining stencils, again building layer by layer. I'm just going to keep using this same color scheme, and you'll notice that I'll dance around on the stencil, putting a little bit of color on the right side and then on the left side, a little in the middle, a little on the top and the bottom. Sometimes I'll fill the entire shape in, sometimes I won't. I encourage you to explore how this stencil can create a whole unique look every time that you use it. And it builds all these layers on here and overlaps, which makes it so fun and interesting. So I'll just let the music play while I fill things in and allow you to observe, and I'll rejoin you closer to the end of the card. Okay, now that I've used all of my stencils, you can see most of the areas are pretty well filled in there, and I've really built up a complicated design. I wanted the color to look a little bit more full, So I decided to hit the perimeter of the design with some brown ink. You don't have to do this. I just thought it might be a little bit more interesting if I went over some of those outer areas with brown and just fill it in with just one color. I think this sort of brings everything together, darkens it a little bit, and makes it so that you can see those white embossing lines a little bit more at the edge, and I like how it turned out. You can use other colors that you used previously to try to blend things together a little bit. I added just a little dash of that crushed olive color just in a portion of the card where it looked like it was a little weak with color, and I think that was about it. You'll be able to see lots of different layers and patterns and blends of color now, and you could go on to assembling the card. I stamped and embossed You Happiness from the stamp set, and I'm using the big Wishing sugar script that matches the Wishing in the stamp set to make the big sentiment for the center of the card. And I'll add those to the center of the card right at the focal point so it really stands out. Now you'll be able to see in the upcoming photo all the little tiny white specks, which I think turned out kind of neat. It was just extra embossing that got stuck to that wedding. This is something you can omit if you take enough time to let those things dry. The Best and the Wishing sugar script dies are sold separately, but they work with this stamp set, and you can really create some fun and beautiful looks using those stencils. I hope you'll check out other videos featuring the Wishing Mandala Stamp Set and stencils.